So I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010, and I think it's really important to mention here that awareness plays a very key role in protecting yourself in the beginning, because no one told me to get a biopsy. My gynecologist said that because you don't have any cancer in the family and you're so young, it's probably a fibroid. So I went along with it, and then a few months later we realized that it had reached my lymph nodes, and that's how I found out that I had cancer. It's interesting, when I first found out, I thought that my life is over. I thought I was going to die. But then I realized that in order to fight it, I needed to have a very positive frame of mind. And that's how I think I survived it. I had a career in fashion, and it needed me to be very active and socially present. And in the beginning, I used to feel very self-conscious. I knew that after a couple of rounds of chemotherapy, I would have to face the situation of losing my hair. I think what's interesting is that you're so attached to your notions of beauty that you've grown up with and that you're socially conditioned by, that once the universe decides that no, this is not going to happen and you're going to lose your hair. I think that it's also a journey of accepting and moving on, because you have to hit reset in order to move on. I had the whole gamut. I had chemotherapy, I had surgery, I had radiation, so my treatment lasted for a whole year. I had steroids, I had a lot of medication that made my body really bloated. I couldn't look at it. I had surgery, and I was always somebody who was very, I used to work out, I was active, I was fit, I used to play sport, but I just couldn't look at myself anymore. I think something like this, when it happens to you, it's a personal adversity. When you're so young, you still have your parents, you may not have found your partner, and you may not have reached so many professional milestones, so you really don't know how to cope with it. You're not prepared for something like this at all. But slowly and slowly, it's also a mental and spiritual journey of being more loving and kinder to yourself. I think that's what this kind of episode teaches you more than anything else. So I was accepted into my dream school where I wanted to do an MBA, and I found out that I was sick a few weeks before I was to fly. That was another thing that totally crushed my ego. How could this be happening to me? I had a successful career, I had a great potential to succeed. I was one of the youngest women managers handling marketing for a fashion label in India, which was a big deal at that point in time. In 2010, I just didn't want to accept it. I think the turning point came when I told myself that I can't swim in despair anymore. I have to be positive, I have to pick myself up every day. Especially, I'd wake up in the morning and see, I had really long hair, and I'd see so much hair in the bathroom as well as on my pillow, because as a result of the chemo, I started losing a lot of it. And one day I just said, I'm going to shave it off. So I shaved off my head, and I would wear saris to weddings with a shaved head. And I would only wear wigs when I wanted to play with a look. But I think it was important for me to tell myself and keep motivating myself to rise up above the situation. My mother really took good care of me. I had supporters. I had friends who would take me to a garden, help me sit and read. There was food that I just couldn't eat. People used to make a certain kind of food that was according to my diet and then send it home or send it to the hospital. I stopped seeing people, and I was a very social person. I stopped going out. But every now and then somebody would come and make sure that they would pull me out of that darkness. And I was really happy on those moments, and I learned to accept and move on a lot better as the months and weeks passed. I think before this happened to me, I was very self-absorbed, and life was all about like the next party, the next work trip, the next work project. It was as if I was constantly competing with myself, and I didn't give myself a break. I also had a lot of friends who didn't really last because it was very uncomfortable to have a bald woman in the room who would remind you that life is transient and it can be you next. So I felt that. However, I started gravitating more and more towards people whose friendships were genuine, and you realize who can really stand by you in moments of your trials and tribulations and who won't. And I think 8 years down the line, the people who supported me back then, they're still really close ambassadors, I would say, and my champions. And I wouldn't have been here had it not been for them. I think I've learned to be kinder to myself. I've learned to take a pause. I've learned to really look at the larger things in life than being bogged down by the smaller details of our everyday life. I try very hard not to look at myself critically. With women, as you age and often as your body and face changes, I think that's something that we have to come to terms with, and something like this really fast tracks that. So because of our cultural construct and the way that we're raised, especially in Asian countries, we tend to be very secretive when something like this happens to us, because we feel, what's the world going to say? Will we be less? Will we be considered as not good enough? And the message that I would like to give all cancer survivors as well as caretakers of the cancer survivors is that it's okay to experience something like this, because it will teach you to be stronger, it'll teach you to be wiser, it'll teach you to choose what you want in your life and who you want in your life. And what I would also like to tell you is, when you're going through this, don't hide. Be yourself. People who love you and believe in you, they will be by your side. This is very difficult and you can't do it on your own. You have to take all the help and support that you need. My motto in life is that I don't take no for an answer. I think I was stubborn before the cancer happened to me, and then I became even more stubborn, and for lack of a better word, I'd like to use resolute in everything that I wanted to do and everything that I wanted to be. I went back to business school that was waiting for me. When this happened to me, I had a spot at a really prestigious business school waiting, and I had to delay that process by 1 year. And I was advised by my friends and my family that I should maybe take a step back and relax and decide whether I really wanted to go back into the intense rat race. I did. I went back to business school 1 year after, and I started on campus after the treatment was done, because I told myself that if I don't give myself this opportunity to hit refresh, I would never be able to let go of the stigma of being sick. I think the reason why campaigns like these are important is because they shed a lot of light on the lives of survivors and women who struggle in order to make their own mark in the world, whether it's personally or professionally. The one message that I would like to give everyone who's watching this is that you have to believe in yourself. No matter what happens to you, whether it's cancer, whether it's a personal adversity, whether it's a professional setback, I think the only way that you can move forward is by putting it behind you and by forcing yourself kindly and gently to ease out of that discomfort. I'm really appreciative to be a part of this campaign for Diya Online, because I think that it celebrates beauty in all forms and all shapes. And what is relatable is the human connect, how the story of one woman ties up with the story of another, and all of whom are inspiring in their own right.